What's up, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Wizards Latest. I'm your host and DC sports fan, Ben Robertson, and on this page, we break down all the biggest headlines surrounding the Washington Wizards. So make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to drop your comments down below as well. I appreciate all the support here on the road to 1K. I thank those of you who are tuning in every single weekday and are consistently down in that comment section. Today, I want to talk about some interesting comments from a possible future Wizards target. Then we'll talk about what CJ McCollum is saying at Wizards training camp. I'll move on to how does Chris Middleton fit in this year. And lastly, guys, preseason is getting closer. I'll kind of give you my maybe biggest question mark as that is now just 10 days away. Again, guys, thanks for tuning in here to the page. And like I said, today I want to talk about what a possible future target is saying here in the media, and who I'm referencing is Austin Reaves, because there's a lot of talk about Austin Reaves for next offseason. He is entering final year of his deal. He has a player option for next season that he's likely to turn down. He's also turned down a 4-year, $90 million extension from the Lakers here this summer. So it looks like Austin Reaves is headed towards free agency next year. So why does that matter? Well, he is one of the players that some have speculated that maybe Washington, with all that future cap flexibility, might be interested in. But here's what Austin Reaves is saying. Austin Reaves says, I feel like I could be an all-star, but I don't want to be in a situation where I'm just going out and shot chucking, getting numbers. If that's the mat for me to be an all-star, I don't care about it. Really, I thought interesting comments here. And a lot of people are saying, well, with Austin Reaves coming out and dropping these quotes, well, that rules out a team like the Wizards. And you know what? In Reaves' case, maybe it does. But I think it raises a bigger question and a bigger point. Washington, with all that cap flexibility, has to go out and prove to free agents that DC is an attractive and kind of a destination place to be in the NBA. They have to go lure free agents to come to the team. Historically, that has been a little bit difficult. Let's be honest. Again, one of the errors, of course, of the Wall and Beal era for about a decade, right, was that they couldn't fill that roster with enough talent around those two guys. Now you can also look at the draft for some of that explanation, but you can also look at you just couldn't find a big name free agent or couldn't land kind of that one kind of marquee free agent to come to the squad. Now, let's be honest, again, new regime that I think we all in the fan base feel like is just doing things the right way and a lot better. Let's see if a new regime can have a new approach and kind of change the minds of some of the free agents and some of the best players around the NBA. But I want to move on and talk about what CJ McCollum is saying here in his first training camp with the Wizards. We're seeing a whole bunch of content from him, or with him included. He looks pretty good. An interesting comment coming in out of some of the media sessions. He says, I think this will be my best season yet. This raises another talking point for me, to be quite honest. On one hand, for Washington, is that, let's say, just for Washington, is that like a good thing that CJ McCollum thinks he's going to have, or feels like he's going to have his best season yet? And I would say on one hand, it could be, because it means he might raise his trade value. And of course, we're kind of hoping or maybe expecting him to get moved here at some point during the season. And the hope would be that you can get as much value as possible back for him. The team's not going to have a whole bunch of leverage in the situation as he's on an expiring deal. So he really has to play well to kind of, again, raise his value and hope you get something kind of nice in return. On the other hand, though, you do need these other young players to have the basketball and to get their touches, get their shots. And I'm a little bit maybe worried that CJ McCollum is going to take up a decent share of the offense. I've mentioned on the page before, the guys average 20 plus for now a decade straight in the NBA. Last year kept that streak going, played 56 games, averaged 21, 4, and 4, 44% from the floor, 37% from three-point land. Those were the numbers for CJ McCollum last season. But let's be clear, when he's on the court, he's going to have the basketball. His usage rate a season ago, or usage percentage, was 27.2. That was 35th in the NBA, but it puts him right about where Jordan Poole was last year, maybe a couple ticks behind. And again, do you guys want CJ McCollum to have a Jordan Poole like role here this season? I'm not sure. I will say Will Dawkins has made it clear, and even part of that Jordan Poole trade was that he wants the offense to look different this year. He's talked about that for a while, wants players that can handle the basketball 1 through 5, and also wants this to be a more ball movement oriented system. But again, I do think those numbers from CJ McCollum are something to keep an eye on. And again, it's a little bit of a dilemma because you want him to play well, you want him to raise his trade value, but you also want some of the other young scoring options to get their opportunity. I want to talk about the other, of course, 30 plus million dollar 30 plus year old vet on the roster, and that's Chris Middleton. And I think another thing to watch here this training camp and in the early stages of the season are how does Chris Middleton fit in? I was wrong, to be quite honest, on Middleton. I thought he would be bought out by now. I just kind of just thought he would be bought out. And again, made way or makes way for some of the younger players and the young wings to get their opportunities. I'm not going to say I want to discount him and CJ McCollum's veteran experience and leadership and knowledge that they're going to be able to pass down to the younger players. I think even just watching those two guys is going to help those young dudes a whole bunch. Again, just seeing Middleton and McCollum go about their work and go about their business on a day-to-day basis, I think is going to be really important. And that, again, so that will be an invaluable asset with those two. However, it does seem, especially with Middleton, that he's just kind of in the way of maybe younger players getting minutes, younger wings being on the court. So again, I think that's something to sort of monitor just how he fits in or what maybe the plans are for him moving forward. I think maybe the league with Middleton, the Wizards as well, but the league is kind of waiting to see how much he has left here in the early stages of the year. Um, I want to talk about CJ McCollum one more time, really quick. I've seen some kind of hate, really, from fans towards CJ, or I didn't realize that the fan base maybe cared about or was affected by as much his CBA negotiations or perceived failures in CBA negotiations. I can understand players maybe being a little bit upset with CJ, but I didn't realize that fans would kind of react like that. I posted on Twitter, I was saying this, I posted on Twitter that I couldn't think of a better mentor for Trey Johnson than CJ McCollum, just position wise, veteran experience, knowledge in the league. And I got a couple negative reactions to that tweet based off of kind of, again, the perceived failures of his CBA negotiations. I could see players maybe being rubbed the wrong way by that, but from a fan's perspective, at least I feel like the CBA currently is probably better for the entire league, right? It creates a little bit more parity, harder to kind of stockpile talent, all NBA talent, at least on a roster. That's a little bit of another debate, but something sort of surprising I realized about CJ McCollum. The last thing I want to talk about here today, and I mentioned it already, but we are 10 days away from Wizards preseason basketball. They'll take on the Raptors on October 12th. I want to ask you your biggest questions here for the rest of training camp. I know it still just got started, but really from this stretch from now until then, biggest question marks for you guys. Biggest one for me is maybe how much do Keyshawn and Cam Whitmore assert themselves with Bilal being out here for training camp and probably going to miss a couple of games. Very interested to see if they can really separate themselves, as Will Dawkins has talked about, he is looking for someone in this young core. Interested to see what they can do if they can really take advantage of those opportunities. But we will keep you posted on everything Wizards related right here on the page. So make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to drop your comments as well. I appreciate all the support here on the page and on the road to 1K. You can also hit me over on Twitter at Ben Robertson32. And thanks for watching another episode of Wizards Latest.